Take me out one more time as though you said to me. And I swore I heard a smile in your voice. I heard a smile over the phone.
Welcome to Rise and Thrive with Tailinh, Agoyo. Rise and Thrive, Indigenous art, culture, and joyful acts of resistance. Today I have a very special guest, Sarah Mueller, who is the founder and director of Sonospeak. Sonospeak is a Philadelphia-based cinema organization that engages diverse audiences through globally minded, contemporary, and repertory independent film programming, creating space and centering the stories of individuals and communities that are often underrepresented in mainstream cinema. Sarah! Hi! Thank you for being here with us. Me.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor, and it's really good to see you.
It's so great to see you. So I'm so excited to be able to talk about everything. But first, I'd really love for you to talk about Sonospeak, how Sonospeak started, and why you saw why there was a need for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been doing this project for about 7 years this fall. We hosted our first pop-up screening in October of 2013. And Sonospeak kind of came out of this desire to connect audiences, independent film enthusiasts to really incredible, vital social justice work happening in our region in Philadelphia. And that's kind of expanded to include various movements around the world and kind of really see how the interconnectedness of how moving image can really talk to and respond to social change work, and film being a really wonderful gathering tool for people because movies are so prevalent in a variety of societies and cultures around the world, particularly in American society, having access to the movies and stuff like that. And so we thought it was a really great way to connect people in a way that they might not have thought before. So people who might not show up at like a protest or a community organizing session might be interested in learning more about, let's say, like water justice issues or things like that. And so using film as a way to kind of not only expose the issue, but provide a path to healing. And so we think that a lot of, documentary films, for example, provide a lot of really great information and content to expose these wounds. But then as programmers, cultural organizers, it can be kind of irresponsible if you only expose it, but that are providing solutions, right? And there's so many incredible people, both in Philly, across the country and around the world, who are addressing, this work. And so we want to include them in the process of the programming that we're doing. And that's sort of been our kind of mode of operation since the beginning, is not only thinking about organizers or people most impacted by the issues to be, just like butts in seats, you know what I mean? Or sort of the outreach end of the programming, but how do we actually include our voices from the top of programming and make sure that the work that we are screening is relevant to the organizing work they are doing on the ground in the moment. And so that's what we've been about. And we're trying to do it more thoughtfully and with more intention and really thinking about ways that we can be proactive in addressing these issues the year round, and while also still doing the kind of reactive, in the moment kind of responsive programming. So things that are arising out of this most recent, Black Lives Matter movement, for example, but thinking about how we incorporate, Black Lives Matter, organizing around the year. And so kind of nurturing those relationships. And of course, We Are the Seed has been a recurring partner of ours. And we're really excited to continue to work around Indigenous voices in cinema throughout the year.
Well, let's talk about that. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine.
I want to explore that more about how responsive you are to the things that are going on in the world. And then moving into this pandemic phase that we've gone through, you had a lot of programming set up for March, April, May, and for the rest of this year going forward. And you've made such an incredible shift to move your programs online, and you've done it so seamlessly and beautifully. In fact, it seems like you made it an asset for you in a lot of ways, where you saw you look for the advantage, like how can this help our organization move forward, or how can we reach more people because of these challenges. So how amazing that you were so quick to respond, but also what was the thinking there? Like, because we were all kind of going through a grieving period and like trying to sort out our own personal lives, not even talking about our organizations, but
right.
so how were you able to motivate? And How quickly were you able to flip it and say, okay, no, this can work because we can reach more people?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think when everything kind of hit in March, like many events producers, everything in regards to in-person event organizing had to shut down, right? There was not a possibility of doing that. And so, of course, arts and cultural organizations had a loss of revenue, and thinking about, all right, well, for small, medium-sized organizations like ours, that's like takes a big hit. And a lot of our work that we do, our team is mostly volunteer. And so thinking about respecting the fact that everybody who's running these things are also dealing, like you said, are just trying to survive, are dealing with job loss and the emotional stress in their families of responding to the news kind of coming in and changing. And so being mindful of that, while also thinking about what are ways that we can still engage people in this moment. Both to our business has been about entertaining and engaging people and educating people. And so, we want to create space. We think that space for joy and it is also resistance, right? Work. And so making space to show movies that just uplift and aren't always exposing issues, you know what I mean? But that are allowing people to kind of rest and breathe and be nurtured by seeing their experiences on screen. And so, and also the piece we noticed too in the shift in the film industry and the cinema industry is that distributors want to get their films out there in the world. They didn't want to miss a beat, to make sure these stories they've been working on, particularly independent and more marginalized filmmakers, have been working so hard to get their stories out there. And so that's who we primarily work with, right? And so wanting to make sure that we're trying to create a space. And so we were fortunate to kind of jump on the wagon with a bunch of our cinema friends across the country, work with distributors and filmmakers to get this content online. And so it was a way for communities to both support these films, right, to make sure that distributors are still seeing these stories as, they pay for themselves, right, so that more can be funded and get out there in the world, and also support their local cinemas. And so we've been releasing independent titles throughout, like, basically since March every week. It's been really cool to kind of see our audience shift to enjoying those films online. Of course, nothing will absolutely replace the experience of being in person with people in a packed out theater, but it's a cool way to kind of keep these stories flowing. And then also the second piece is that we decided to think about, which we've always thought about, is how do people have access financially to this content? It's so expensive for families to go to the movies, and particularly even having things like Netflix, all those subscription services add up. And we realized that in Philadelphia and a lot of libraries across the country have access to Canopy with a K, a service that is a free streaming platform for a lot of library cardhold users. And so we started programming those films that are already available for free for our audiences, and then inviting our arts and cultural partners as well as community organizers to kind of help pick those films. And then we hosted little pre and post conversations on Zoom as a way for audiences to kind of connect. And it was really cool. And we asked people that while these films are free, in good faith, we ask you to donate to the organizations that are, that are joining us and partnering. And it was a way for us to kind of continue to give back and think about how we're building community, how we're addressing issues. And so it was really cool. Everything's been an experiment. We're kind of learning, and we're small and scrappy enough to kind of be able to flex pretty well.
Right. I think that's one of the advantages of having a smaller crew, is that you can just, we're going this way now.
Yeah.
But so if people are interested, the listeners are interested in finding out about when your screenings are, what's the best way? Is it through social media? Is it through your website? What is it?
That's a great question. You could, so you can find us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Sonospeak, which is CINESPEAK.org. And that's our website too. And you can find everything on there. We post on Facebook. We have our events, the movies that are coming out. One thing to look out for is you can actually join our newsletter via our website. So Sonospeak.org. And we release about bi-weekly. We're sending out emails, letting people know about what's happening in the independent media world in Philadelphia, programs that we're, producing with our partners, ways to buy tickets, things that you can enjoy at home, like some of our top picks from like Hulu or Netflix, things like that. That are also mission aligned. And yeah, what's really cool is this month into this fall is we're actually starting to do more programming where there's live events. And so you should be on the lookout for like conversations with filmmakers and things like that. Another way for you to kind of unpack these important stories that are circulating.
Yeah, you're really great with engagement. I love receiving all of your news and seeing your suggestions and everything that you put out. It's very impressive too, I have to say. But I want to ask you about Best of Philly, and that was super exciting. And also, they had mentioned that you are planning to your plans for an independent film house. So share, please.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. As somebody I've spent about half my life in Philly, it's a huge. It's always nice to get press, right? When we're a small organization, it was incredibly honored to have like a hometown award. So we were voted best movie theater by Philadelphia Magazine's Best of Philly 2020, which is really exciting. And my understanding too, while we don't have like a traditional brick and mortar theater yet, they were impressed by the ways in which we were able to pivot to a virtual space. And again, what's really cool is that, what was unfortunate is that leading into before this pandemic hit, we were slated to start construction on phase 1 of this like basement black box space, which is going to be the first iteration of a permanent location for us. We for the past 7 years have operated in a mobile outdoor kind of capacity, popping up in community centers, parks.
Yeah, Sarah, can you talk about, as an aside, about living rooms and those types of things that you have been doing, and then move into what?
Yeah, totally. Right. So. Thank you for mentioning that. So we are thinking about the ways in which people interact with film content, right? Most of us are comfortable going into movie theaters. And we found that, initially when we started just screening the films, we always provided space for conversation. But we think that people sometimes, to unpack things that are particularly impactful for themselves or their communities, it can be really a vulnerable thing to talk about. And so we wanted to explore ways to make those public screenings even more intimate. And so that's where living room cinema was kind of born out of that. And so the idea has been to have these more public screenings, like maybe like a once a month kind of a premiere of a new contemporary film or a classic screening, and then having a smaller screening actually happening in someone's living room or like in a coffee shop, a small space of less than 20 people, to have it to screen another film and have an even deeper discussion, and for people to actually know the people they're actually in conversation with, they're enjoying this content with. And we've been doing that for the past couple of years, and it's been really cool to kind of work with different partners on both the larger, more public screening and then the more intimate living room cinema. And so we're always trying to think of ways that we can still pop up and, make those conversations the most productive, they can be, and really create new relationships. And people, find out about things or care about, issues that they didn't even maybe know about before. And for us, it's really exciting to see new relationships kind of come out of that.
Yeah, and absolutely. So, I remember I worked with you on one living room cinema. It was at Franny Lou's porch.
Yeah.
And there was a couple there that said they just saw it in the local news. They had never heard about either of our organizations or where we were. And then they discovered three new places, 3 new offerings. And it was really wonderful. And they were very excited to be there and impressed, and it was so nice. And they had stayed till the end, and we were having a very deep discussion and it went a long time, and they stayed to the very end. And I was like, wow, you really do reach out and get audiences that wouldn't normally maybe they wouldn't normally think to come see this film, but because the way you set it up and because it's so comfortable and in this wonderful space, that people are willing to try something new and experience something new for their lives. And that's really great. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll continue this conversation, because I know you're not done talking about where you're headed. So we'll do that. We'll be back. This is Tailinh Agoyo on Rise and Thrive on Usula Media. See you shortly.
Being prepared is a part of who you are, but it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you go in an emergency. Build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
If you love them enough to suck the snot out of their nose at 4 a.m., then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
And that sad look that you bear when you think there's no one there.
And we're back on Rise and Thrive with Sarah Mueller, who is director and founder of Sonospeak in Philadelphia. Sarah, thanks.
Hi.
I'm so happy to be talking to you about the evolution of Sonospeak. So when we left, we were talking about where you're headed. So if you'd like to continue on and fill us in.
Yeah, totally. So, we were talking about living room cinema and some of our past programming being more mobile and outdoors and things like that, which has been really great. And, that whole idea came out of the desire to bring really incredible content, like great stories, things people wouldn't find in mainstream movie theaters, to neighborhoods and create it in a way that is equitably priced. A lot of our programming has been low, no, and sliding scale costs. We think that's often a barrier for people when they're going out for arts and cultural events. Once you get, a single person can cost anywhere from like $10 to $12, $13, $15 in some cities. And you think about families, and that begins to become a really large expense to go see movies in theaters. And so we were thinking about, what is the way we can do that? And so having outdoor events, mobile events in community centers, parking lots, things like that, has enabled us the flexibility as an organization also to grow, to not have that overhead and things like that, and to be in neighborhoods that have less access, right, to movie theaters and things like that, and arts and cultural events. And so in the past couple of years, realizing that we were starting to grow and needing to have a stable home, we wanted to build what would it be like for us, an organization that has moved around the city for 7 years, to have a home and be rooted someplace that can kind of be our launching point. You know what I mean? It's invested in the community, that is gels, with the local small businesses, that knows its neighbors, and the people who are there really care about it and believe it is a space for them to come and enjoy films that are going to challenge them and also bring them a lot of joy. And so we've been thinking about that for the past couple of years, trying to figure out the right place to kind of do that. And so, because our organization is pretty small and mostly volunteer, wherever I exist in the city in terms of a citizen, a resident, is where our home office is. And I relocated to West Philadelphia for a day job, I guess a little over a year and a half ago. And so we've been really enjoying living in West Philadelphia. Not born and raised. I always have to say that whenever
it went through my head as soon as
it does. Yeah. So West Philadelphia is where we are, a fabulous section of the city, right across the river, the Schuylkill River. And so we've been there for a little while, trying to make partners, think about who do we already know, right? We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We want to be a part of what's already happened. And so we found a really cool church that's at the corner of 48th and Baltimore Avenue, which is a historic, bustling commercial corridor. And I should say that there's actually 4 different faith communities that actually use. There's a couple Christian congregations, a synagogue that all uses this space, in addition to a variety of social change organizations who have their regular community organizing meetings. There's a preschool that meets there in this giant space. It's been really cool how they've created what was a sacred space into a variety of secular and sacred arts and cultural neighborhood activities. And so they had this space in their basement that was used as kind of a black box, which is kind of like a multi-purpose arts, a multidisciplinary art space. And we're looking for a way to kind of, bring in more people, bring in revenue, kind of activate the space. And so when I came in there was I took a tour, and there was actually a small set of stadium style seating in there that had been in there for decades. And so I walked in and was like, oh, this is a tiny movie theater. This could be it. And it's right there on public transportation line. And so we've been in conversations with them for the past, I guess, year and a half. And so that's where we were slated to start building out, as the first kind of place we would live. And it was exciting to us because it is easily accessible. It's right in the middle of a neighborhood, but also on a trolley line and a bus line, which is important to us, right?
Yeah.
The people who don't have cars can easily get to it. It's very walkable. People are used to where it exists. And we want to make sure that we're thinking about all of those things. And being a place, a community partner, the Calvary Center for Community and Culture, they're already thinking about the ways that they are involved in their neighborhood, right? They're not just an insular space, they're very porous. And that's how we're trying to be. And so it's been a really cool partnership. And so now that project is on hold, that build out, but we're working to raise more funds and think about how we will use that space once we're allowed to gather in person again. We want to make sure that like the safety of our audience is preserved, right? That however long this pandemic lasts, movie theaters, of course, are going to be some of the last spaces to open. And so we want to do it really well. And so we didn't want to like halt our programming. That's how we shifted to this virtual thing and getting back into the collaborative programming with like We Are the Seeds and other really great organizations in our city. And then begin to think for the future. And it's been really great for us because having low overhead too, we don't have the struggle of having full-time staff, of having a really intensive lease. So being small and scrappy has been a benefit to us to be able to kind of flex and change with the industry, because the cinema industry has been changing with Netflix and things like that. People going to movies less. And so people are drawn to community centered art house cinemas. And that's what we're kind of trying to evolve into. And so we're excited to kind of keep working ahead. We believe people will be able to get back to the movies and long for that experience too, right? So we're just going to keep growing and keep moving.
I remember seeing in the Rotunda, we went to one of your showings. I forget what it was about the Cuban, Tuba de Cuba.
Oh, Tuba de Cuba, yeah.
It was so great to see that with an audience, and I'm sure it's great to see it at home too, but there was nothing like it with the music and the energy that everybody had. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to the time when we can come to your screenings again. And so if people want to contribute or donate to this fund, how would they do that?
That's a great question. So we run on ticket sales and grants and things like that, and donations from generous sponsors. And so on our website at Sonospeak.org, Cine like the cinema, CINESPEAK.org. There is a donate tab, and you can just click right there, and it'll take you to a way to donate for your tax deductible donation. So yeah, we've been really thankful for the support. It's actually been interesting you mentioned the donations, because we received support from like a national coalition of cinemas, Art House Convergence, who have given us two smaller grants to enable cinemas to kind of keep doing what they're doing, to stay alive, to pay out the people who maybe lost work when events were canceled. So we've been able to do things like that. We received funding from PNC Arts Alive. So we're looking to kind of how to position to do some outdoor events and drive-in cinemas. So yeah, we're thankful that funders are thinking about ways that their organizations are still going to need to keep moving ahead. And so any support is always appreciated.
Yeah, yes. Visit Sonospeak.org. Let's move into talking about what's happening this week, which I'm excited to be a part of. Canción Sin Nombre, which is directed by Melina Leon, who is the first Peruvian female director to play at Cannes Film Festival. It's so exciting.
Huge.
So this film, you will be, I keep thinking premiering, but how do you say it? You'll be...
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I can say premiere, I guess. There's another theater in the Philly area that is also bringing it, so it's not the same as when you have exclusive, premiere credit. But we are honored to be a Philadelphia cinema to present this film, and we've been watching this film for a while. Film Movement is an incredible independent distributor, and we've been working with them actually since the beginning of the pandemic. They were the first to offer cinemas the opportunity to screen these films online, and gave cinemas a really great deal in terms of the amount of revenue we can retain from those ticket sales. And so, this film, what's really cool about this is that I thought it was a long shot, but we reached out to the filmmaker and asked her if she would be willing to be in conversation and have a Q&A. And so my understanding is that we are the only Philadelphia cinema who will be in conversation with her. And of course, we get to have your lovely self, and we are the seeds involved, and also Maranjali, the festival director from the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival, to really unpack a lot of these larger themes of womanhood and indigenous woman sovereignty over your own bodies and things like that. And so we're really excited to host and to just create space for this conversation, because this film, we don't want people to miss it. And although some aspects of it are like a little bit heavier, because it comes from a true life story of a woman whose baby was taken from her, that it's done in a really beautiful and artful way. And we think it's so important that this story is told by Indigenous woman, right? That she has the ability to own her story and tell her story in a way that she feels is right for her community. Because so often these stories are mishandled, right? And so we, as often as possible, try to screen films that are only, produced by the communities in which we are telling the stories. And so we're really honored to not only host this film and give it a good 2-week run, but also have her in conversation. We're very humbled. Yeah.
So how does it work? I know that on Facebook you have the event listed, and then you have all the screening times. So for our audience, can you explain, if they want to film, you have several screenings happening?
Yeah, and the best thing about this with the virtual program, with the virtual theatrical release, is that it actually functions kind of like a rental. So when you actually purchase the ticket, you will have 3 days to watch the film, and you can start and stop it, do it as you like, and it's going to run for 2 weeks straight. So you have 2 weeks to watch this incredible film, and you can purchase it directly from our website. The Facebook also links directly to the ticketing site. And because of the distributors and the filmmakers wanting to make sure in the age of piracy the film is protected, when you purchase the ticket, you go to click on that link, it's going to direct you right to the platform of where you're going to both purchase the ticket securely and you're going to watch and enjoy that film. And so you're going to have a really great experience. You can watch on your computer, you can connect to your TV, there is an app. And so we're really excited about that. And then the closing weekend, August 15th, is when we're going to have a live conversation. And so you can enjoy the film with us at 7:00 that night and then join the conversation so it's fresh in your mind. Or you can enjoy it now and then join that conversation. It's really, there's a lot of flexibility.
And how much are ticket prices?
Yeah, tickets are $10.
It's so affordable.
Yeah, it's super affordable, and it can be for a whole household. You can enjoy getting people together and watch it. Yeah, we're really excited about it. And the great thing is that the half the proceeds are going to be divided amongst our partners who are co-presenting this great film. And like I said, it's for us, it's really important to host films like this. It's an honor to do that, because the more that we are, of course it supports our organization, but for us who care about these stories, we want to make sure the distributors see these stories, that people want to see them through their purchasing, and that they continue to fund stories, right? So it's impressive that that Indigenous Peruvian woman got to premiere at the Cannes Film Festival. And also we need more Peruvian Indigenous women telling their stories on, Indigenous women, around the world continually. So we want to make sure that we're funding stories like this and telling distributors to keep doing it, taking a chance. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What other films are coming up?
Yeah, so we have a lot of really great films. If you're really interested in artists, like biopics, like kind of understanding the artist process, there's an incredible Chinese artist, Weiwei, who I think would define himself as an artist activist. He's been doing really provocative work forever. He actually was jailed by the Chinese government for breaking a precious piece of ceramics as kind of a statement about his government.
Sarah.
His people. And so we have a film. Yeah.
Just put your mic on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, your mic is.
Oh, sorry. It's too low. Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me better now?
Oh, I can hear you
a little bit.
Making a noise, so I just.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. I should clip it.
Weiwei.
Yeah, Weiwei. Yeah. So we have
ceramic. And
yeah, so he's done a lot of really provocative stuff, and he broke a 1,000-year-old ceramic jar years ago, and that's sort of what got him basically incarcerated for a while. And he now lives, I believe, in Germany. He's in exile, but he did a really incredible exhibit on Alcatraz Island about the prison system. And so we're premiering a film called Ai Weiwei, Yours Truly, and explores how he sort of went into making that installation And so that will also actually that will open this Friday as well. And we're partnering with Vox Populi, which is an artist activist collaborative in Philadelphia on that. So that film's coming out. And then on the 14th, we have an incredible restoration that Kino Lorber put out called Jazz on a Summer's Day, which is about the Rhode Island Jazz Festival in 1958. And so you have a lot of really incredible performances by like Thelonious Monk and Louis Armstrong and stuff like that. And so it's a really, we try to screen a lot of different things because we think that our audience enjoys a lot of, really incredible content. And we want to screen things that people aren't screening elsewhere. And so we have, like I said, we have this incredible true story with the Song Without a Name this Friday. We have the Ai Weiwei film, Jazz on a Summer's Day. And right now we're really only publishing publicly promoting what we're doing over the next month. So we have a couple other things coming in the next couple of weeks. We have an exciting collaboration with the Philadelphia Asian American Film Festival in September of a really cool film that will eventually be on PBS, but that's kind of top secret right now, but that's coming. And lots of more live events. So where we really want to create space to have these conversations. People have the opportunity to kind of talk to filmmakers. And it's so cool that we can have Melina Leon, who lives in Lima, be available for a conversation. So, it's exciting for us to create these exclusive opportunities for our audience to kind of come in wherever they are. So if you're in LA, if you're in Lima, if you're in Philly, you can see this conversation live on the 15th at 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can register for that on our website. And yeah, there'll be more free programming as well. We're going to be bringing back our Canopy series that will be happening weekly. So that will launch again, probably closer to September. And yeah, lots of really great stuff. We want to support arts and cultural organizations who are organizing, doing really cool festivals and things. So you'll see some of that programming coming in the next few months too, to kind of ways in which we're going to kind of continue the story on and on. So
it's really incredible, all the work that you're doing, and that it's just, it's so impactful, and making these films accessible. And your website's so easy to, beautiful website, by the way. I know you had a new launch, right?
Woo! It is. It's 2 years in the making, but it happened.
It was worth it. I was looking through, I was like, that was worth it, because it's wonderful. I mean,
thank you.
It's wonderful. It's really easy to use, and it lays out everything that you're doing really easily. So if you're not on Facebook or Instagram, the website's a very good resource. So congratulations on that. But
Thank
it's
you.
Phenomenal seeing all the work that you're doing. I just feel like you're just going 100 miles an hour. But at the same time, it's just, it feels close and intimate and friendly. Like, I know you're like, but then when we visit your events, or we're a part of your events, they feel very community oriented and inclusive and beautiful. So you have this very interesting dynamic, how you can do both of those things at the same time. And I think it's just lovely. It's really wonderful. So I congratulate you on that, because this time has not been easy at all. And the fact that you've been able to pick up and do these things has been just a testament to how brilliant you are, honestly. But we'll take a break. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about Sonospeak and what's going on in the world with Sarah Mueller on USLA Media.
Take me out one more time is all you said to me. And I swore I heard a smile in your voice. I heard a smile over the phone.
Don't wait. Communicate. Make your emergency plan today.
Mama smiling when you say you're mad. Just let me pull you close and make you sad. Let's just
Rise and Thrive on social media. Today, I'm here with Sarah Mueller, who is the director and founder of Sonospeak. And we, over break, were just talking about, as most of you know, I'm director of We Are the Seeds, which is an Indigenous art and culture organization here in Philadelphia. And We Are the Seeds has partnered with Sonospeak a few times. So we were just talking about how Sonospeak is actively making sure that Indigenous film is represented in Philadelphia, which is incredible. It's been an incredible experience working alongside you at these events. There were three in particular. There was a living room cinema where you asked me a suggestion for a film, and I suggested Drunk Town's Finest by Sidney Freeland. And then there was the shorts. You can chime in at any time, Sarah.
Yeah, the Sundance
Right?
Festival shorts, yep.
And then there was one more, remind me.
Your film program, the pop-up that We Are the Seeds did.
Film program. Yeah, so We Are the Seeds last April, Sarah curated a film festival of shorts that we showed in between our programs and performances. Yeah, and it's been wonderful. When you first, I think the first time we worked together was at Living Room Cinema. And so bringing that film and seeing, it's a story about a Navajo young woman, seeing that up on screen in Philadelphia was kind of a mind blowing, you know. And I've lived in Santa Fe for a long time. My kids were raised there. My husband's from there. And so the Southwest is very comfortable for me, but and we're used to having a lot of more representation, let's say. But here there is really none. So it was wonderful to be able to sit in a backyard at Franny Lou's and watch Native people on screen, not only as actors, but just telling these stories. And then to be able to answer questions that people had, which were great, you know, and they were interesting questions. Yeah. I really appreciated that experience. I was nervous though.
Oh, sure.
I was, because it just felt like there's so much, and how do you explain these things to an audience who really primarily has no understanding? So you don't, it's just, it's complex.
Yeah. It's actually, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because that's something that we've thought about, you know, as we were programming films. Not all of us in the community, I'm a white woman, and not all of us who program films at Sonospeak, or with Sonospeak, I should say, from the team, we have a variety of identities, right? And so I think about how we do this with intention that's not exploitative, that is not unhelpful, right? So when we're screening films that expose issues, or even just films that are narrative films, right, that are going to have nuances because the filmmaker who is telling them is from that community, that, you know, a lot of films just get thrown up arbitrarily. Exhibitions at art museums get thrown up arbitrarily or seemingly that way, with little thought as to the variety of lenses people are going to have going into them, right? With no context, right? And I know that we've done collaborations where we've said, hey, we want to explore, justice in Israel-Palestine, for example, you know, very complicated conflict. And so we work with different partners on a variety of sides of the issues. And a film was brought to us, let's say, by a distributor who asked us to screen this film. And we bring it back to our partners, and they say, the Palestinians, who are a variety of communities. There are Christians, there are Muslims, there are people who wear hijab, there are people who do not. And so when we wanted to screen this film, we had them screen it first and kind of talk about it amongst themselves. And it came back really like, oh, no, there's too much complexity here. Like, it'd be too difficult to, or we feel too vulnerable screening this in a mixed audience, right? So like, we don't want to, or it's gonna be hard for us to explain. Then we don't want to do that labor of explaining ourselves to a mixed audience. You know what I mean? And so we're thinking about that too as an organization. So like, how can we create space where maybe in group, we still present these films, but there can be like mixed audiences, there can be in group only. You know what I'm saying? Like a safer space is to experience these films. And we still haven't figured that out yet totally how to do that, but we want to get there. That's why our goal is to like create that space, because we recognize that challenge. And we want to make sure that those whose stories they primarily are not feeling further exposed and potentially vulnerable or really nervous in the process. And so I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I know that was something that came up during Drunktown Finest too, that you talked about screening it like kind of in a mixed audience.
Yeah. And I remember I've heard this, what you just talked about, and I think that's right. I think figuring out what audience it works for and having those conversations is really important. Like when we did the Sundance shorts, I thought that was a really interesting reaction and response. And just to give a little bit of background, they weren't narrative films. They were mostly experimental, and a lot of animation, and a lot, some of it was just sound, it was very experimental. And I think, and they were made by Indigenous filmmakers from all over the world. And I think when it ended, I saw people kind of look around like, what was that? Because right. They had an idea that they were going to see maybe some powwow dancers or some singing and some very, the things that there are normally in their perspective when they think about Native people. And this was Native people sharing their experience using technology in their, in their own voices, in their own ways, and not accommodating an audience of people who don't necessarily understand the Indigenous experience. And so it was so interesting. And then to be on the panel after that, because I don't think that people necessarily were prepared to ask those kinds of questions, because they were very private type films. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a really interesting experience.
Yeah, it was interesting because in that case too, so that program came out of the Sundance Institute. And so they've been creating fellowships and opportunities. My mic again, sorry. Thank you. They've been creating fellowships and opportunities for Indigenous filmmakers, particularly in North America. And so what was interesting with that is that we didn't have an opportunity to screen those films too. We usually always try and screen them to understand what we're actually watching and prepare our panelists and all those kind of things. And so we were given the package and we just all got to experience it together, which I thought was really interesting. And I love what they're doing, because they're looking to Indigenous storytellers to tell their stories in any way, in a new media, interactive media. A lot of those films we saw actually go on to be part of art installations in museums and things like that, our virtual reality, kind of interactive storytelling. And so it's so incredible because, of course, Indigenous communities the world over have had really complex relationships with Hollywood, for example, in the US, right, in terms of portrayals and things like that. So being able to have that kind of control and to say, no, this is how I tell my story. And I don't really care if you don't get it, you know what I'm saying? Or if you are expecting something some stereotype or whatever it is. This is my story, and that is a valid expression of myself. And I think it's really cool that Sundance is trying to be a leader in terms of getting funding to Indigenous filmmakers. Of course, more needs to be done. I know the Canadian government is also trying to funnel more money to First Nations, Indigenous people.
The Sami film, I don't know what their film organization is called, but they seem like they're putting a lot of funding into their films as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's actually really cool. I should mention that if you're interested in seeing more Indigenous content from around the world, and in Canada, the National Film Board, I forget exactly their website, but if you look up National Film Board, you can find some really cool variety of genres of documentary, more narrative work, experimental film, even cartoons, produced by Indigenous peoples within Canada, within the different provinces. That's a really cool resource, all free content online. So it's a really cool place to check out stuff. But yeah, I thought I was really surprised by that program too, and to kind of see the audience's reaction, because it also wasn't like issue based. It wasn't like, here's the problem that our Indigenous communities are facing. They were joyful. There was dancing. There was like, it was just like, it was very I thought a good. But there was animations. They were just someone telling.
Or just making a basket. That was it.
Yes.
No dialogue. Nothing. It was just is as if you were making the basket.
Yeah. Yeah, it was incredible. It was a variety of things, and like I love that it was an experimental program, something we've never done before. And it was cool. There was Indigenous storytellers that got to be the first to kind of bring that to our city. So I felt really honored to present that and to present it with you. I thought you had.
Thank you for asking me. It was so interesting. It was great. So what else is going on? Let's hear, like, we have 10 minutes left. So I want to know what your days look like. How is work for you? You know, you're just pushing forward. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I mean, I think the remote thing, as a people person, as somebody who, my life work in terms of bringing people together, people, there's a loss in that. There's a loss in not being able to watch these incredible films with people. There are films that we haven't been able to bring that I think, breaks my heart a little bit, that are now, of course, available on video on demand. If you haven't seen another incredible Indigenous film that we were supposed to bring, was Jeff Barnaby, who's a Canadian filmmaker, Blood Quantum, which is a horror film, like a zombie film. If you haven't seen it, you can watch that on Shudder. You can also rent it on iTunes, I think, and maybe YouTube. But that was a film we were slated to bring this spring, and it was going to be so incredible, to see this film with a packed audience. We were able to present another of his films, Rhymes for Young Ghouls, which is on Canopy.
Great film.
Yeah, really cool. And so, for me, the work is, it's never ending. But in a way, I have good boundaries for it now. It's really easy when you're passionate about, our work, as you are, to just, the carrot is there. You want to bring more. You want to center more of these stories. You want to bring audiences really great content and solve all the problems that help makes that art more accessible. And for me, having patience in the process with myself and with the systems that are at play in society, trying to navigate all of that is a constant journey. But I'm really excited for the moments that I get to have these conversations, that I get to, help bring filmmakers, for live conversations and connect partners who might not have worked together. You know what I mean? Like you and Marangeli with the Latino Film Festival don't know each other and are two incredibly badass women who are in Philly doing important work. You know what I mean? And you two should know each other. To me, that is the joy that lights my fire. So when I'm like feeling impatient that we're not doing enough in my mind, or we, don't have enough money, or all of these things, that's what kind of keeps me, excited. You know what I mean? Is bringing people together to keep doing this work and knowing that we got to think about it as long game work. You know what I mean? Like movement building and community organizing, that a lot of that stuff, even if once you get to the policy making, there's been decades and decades, you know what I'm saying? Centuries of work sometimes.
It's true. And I feel like I'm guilty of this, that in the beginning, it was always like, okay, it's emergency. Like, we need to get this event done. Like, it has to get done now or it won't get done. And I don't know what drives that mindset for me. And it sounds like you may not have it as extreme, but you have, there's this kind of drive to get stuff done and not stop. And this pandemic has brought everything to an excruciating halt. And then we have to figure and now maybe find a balance. So maybe that's the good thing. I'm trying to tell myself that that's the good thing coming out of this. But yeah, there's this need, because you see so much needs to happen. And even though we're a small organization, you're a small organization, kind of take all of that on yourselves to not have any quiet times. Like, I just want to keep, and let's talk about, in the last few minutes, the joy part of it, because we are always talking about, we want to focus on the joy of being Indigenous. There's so much pain and there's so much trauma that so many of our families have been through. But there's also so much beauty and joy. And I see you talk about this all the time too, while you're showing films that are important and talking about issues that really matter and are necessary to discuss, that you want your organization to be joy focused. So share,
Yeah.
like, why do you feel that way, and what do you do to make that happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, I can't remember exactly where I heard it first. But I think joy as an act of, centering one's joy as an act of survival, and is a resistance act, in terms of like, being able to live in that moment. And I think for me, because movies have been so, integral in my life and bringing me happiness. I think about the times that as a kid when I was fortunate to go see a new Disney movie or something like that, just the magic of the moment when when the projector beams and everyone's so excited and you're all laughing together and you're in awe and you're seeing princes and princesses and all of these things. And thinking about children growing up, especially I think about young people experiences of the movies. And for me, I long to live in a world where like children can see themselves reflected and see a variety of their identities reflected, and believe they're superheroes, that they are, you know what I mean? And I think for me, that's what I want. That's like another carrot, you know what I mean? Is that like, I want to keep helping to push the conversation, even in a small way in Philadelphia, be in conversation with my national, and global partners, cinema people. We have the choice in terms of the films that we program. Of course, there are the superhero movies that bring a lot of money and keep these art house community theaters afloat, but making sure that we're not losing sight of what is really important, which is highlighting these stories and finding the people who do want to fund that, and make sure that you can create the opportunities for those films to be priced in a way that it can reach more people. And I think that film is a medium that is so experiential because it is sight and it is sound, and it kicks up so many emotions for us, that it is an incredible tool for not only dismantling white supremacy, but creating a more tolerant society in general, for creating empathy, being able to see other people's joy and pain and understand it as have that moment where you click. It's a light bulb moment. For me, that's the joy that I live for, is being able to see, we get hired every year to produce a screening for Halloween for Community Garden. And we're screening not movies we would probably book ourselves. Like we're screening like Inside Out, Black Panther, films that are really great films. But when I get to see children, in that moment, and they just freeze, you know what I mean? And they're just watching, E.T. on screen, or they're watching Black Panther, or any of the incredible, a badass Black women scientists in that movie. You know what I mean? They get to see that happen. It is so special to me because that's like what I think about that child seeing themselves, 10, 20, 30 years down the line. And I believe we're going to get there someday, that we'll see more equitable representation on film and television. It is slow. It is never fast enough. And I just hope that we can be one piece of that, in whatever small way we can. Keep pushing that conversation and choose films, and keep booking these films so they get more funding. That's my hope. That's sort of how the trajectory, and that's the joy. It's exciting. I love seeing the light bulbs and the
Mhm.
and the firing and the big eyes. So
Yeah,
that's the joy.
you're doing it.
We're trying.
Yeah. No, you are. You are. So in the last few minutes, uh, let's go over how people can, let's revisit that. How can people access you? Sonospeak.org is
Yeah.
your website. And then what are you on Facebook? What are all your handles?
Yeah, so on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, we're at Sonospeak, and you can find us there. Cine, like the cinema, speak as like we talk, and connect with us there on our website. You can also sign up for our newsletter. I hope that you will attend our, not only enjoy the film Song Without a Name, that's opening this Friday, but that you will also join our free Q&A and live conversation with Tailinh and Ranjali and myself, on the 15th. And so you can register for that. We are requiring registration because it's a private Zoom, but it will be live. Get your questions answered, have an opportunity to interact with a really brilliant filmmaker. And follow us. And we're going to keep bringing more incredible films to the city. And of course, now that we're at home, even if you're not in Philadelphia, you can enjoy this content online. And we hope you'll join the conversation. Yeah.
It's really wonderful. And if you'd like to make donations to move everything along, Sonospeak.org. Sarah, it's so nice to see you.
It's so good to see you. What an honor.
See you in person.
Yes, I know. I know. Hopefully soon. Maybe we can make like a distant park like way.
Right? Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to your creative ideas on how to get films outside. We will definitely be there for that.
Yeah, let's talk about that when we get back. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been really an honor, and it's been I respect your organization so much, and I'm really thankful that you've been one of our like longest running like continual partners too. So I'm thankful for that.
And I'm thankful for it as well. Thank you for joining me here today and taking
the
time. Busy schedule, and I will see you next Saturday, 8:45 p.m. Right?
Yes, can't wait.
Okay, this is Tailinh Agoyo on Rise and Thrive, Indigenous art, culture, and joyful acts of resistance on this media. We'll see you next Thursday. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Can I look at you without